Hey guys, welcome to the RHWoodshop. I'm Drew Short. But before we get into anything, let's check in with our boomer station.
Hey guys, Mike Capazzi here. It's hammer time in my workshop. And if you're not rocking it with Drew over at the RHWoodshop, then you're missing out. Boom!
Now, we are going to get started by removing this slat board. If you remember, I put this in here to take care of a storage solution problem. It's tacky. I don't like it. It's not painted or finished, so we're going to remove it. And I've got to be careful because my attic door is right above me, so I have to come up with a clever storage solution that will maximize the ceiling height as well as the wall and how much space I can push out where that attic ladder doesn't hit. So I'm going to put a mud locker system right here. It's a little limited on width and it's not going to look like a huge one like you might see, but I'm going to have tall ceiling heights that'll give me adjustable shelving above, a place below with doors to hang your jackets and all that stuff, and then down below pull-out drawers for your shoes. There'll also be a drawer down below the jackets just for some odds and ends stuff if you want to store them.
Now all I'm doing here is starting out with some 3/4 inch plywood to cut the sides as well as the uprights. Now I'm also taking a 3/4 inch piece for the top and bottom, and I'm able to get both out of one strip, and then I'm also cutting the back out of a 1/2 inch sheet of plywood. Now these pieces of pine are meant just for the skirting around the bench as well as the bottom.
Now the top is going to be 1.5 inches thick. Now, instead of sandwiching 2 pieces of plywood, I'm just going to cut a few strips that I can just set right underneath the very top to raise it up high enough to where it looks like it's 1.5 inches thick. Now we're just going to cut the top, and then we're going to band it with more pine. Now with all the pieces cut, it's time to change to the dado stack so we can batch cut all of our dados, grooves, and tongues. Now, I've stacked up a whole bunch of my chipper blades as well as my outer blades, making sure that the teeth are riding in between one another, just like they would in the saw. Then I've got my piece that I need to inset in a dado right next to it. It feels pretty good right there. It's just the slightest little bitty nick. And lastly, we're going to cut 2 dados running the width of the board on the top and bottom, flipping it end for end on each pass for the uprights. And lastly, using the sacrificial fence and the dado stack, we're going to make the offset tongue on the top that will be accepted in the side. Now before we put all this stuff together, we're going to just prep it by pre-drilling all the holes through the back side of the dados, which will help us locate the screws easier when we go to put it together. Now here on the offset tongue and groove joint, we're going to drill the holes just above the joint itself, because that's pretty much where the middle of the board's going to be. And now I want to just countersink Okay, now that we have the top and bottom on, take the back, slide it in the dados that you made. Now we're just going to put on the sides, lining up all the joints. It'll fit together like a puzzle. These little spacers right here will help give us 1.5 inch top which will give us the overall dimension of an 18-inch tall bench top. Now, don't worry about this overhang right here. There's actually going to be a 3/4 inch strip that will be covering up this overhang, as well as the drawer fronts that will be right up against it as well. So it's going to look nice, trust me. Now, I've got some scrap 3/4 inch pieces that are offcuts from my cabinetry that I just finished, and they are going to work perfectly for the sides of the upper cabinetry. First, I'm going to take them to the table saw and cut them to length before I cut them to width. That way, I don't have to open up my garage door to the cold. All right, now with the scrap cutoffs that I have from those pieces that I just cut, we're going to make the top and bottoms. And these are for the adjustable shelving. I cut them oversized, we'll trim them up later. Now, using the same method as before to find the width for the dado stack, for the specific piece that I'm going to put in, I'm going to run all of the pieces through that are going to require grooves for the backs. Now I've got to cut the grooves for the offset tongues. I've left the blade 1/4 inch high, but I've reduced the width to 1/4 inch. All right, now it's time to work on the dados that are going to be just above the drawer and below the adjustable shelving. Now, this is the part that you have to pay real close attention to. Because we have already established the back dado, we're going to have 3 pieces that are going to mirror the opposite 3 pieces. So whenever we run these dados for the lower and upper, since they're in different locations, we got to make sure that the last 3 that we do are going to be the exact opposite, so that way when they come together with the backs in place, that they'll be mirrored and they won't be opposite of one another. All right, now lastly, we need to make the offset tongue on the top and bottoms that will be accepted in this groove. All right, now it's time to cut the shelf pin holes that are going to go on this half or this section of the uprights. So I'm just going to take the jig that I've got for adjustable shelf pins, make sure that it's locked in place, slide it up a little bit. And the dado here, I'm going to put a registration board in. Now with the first hole, I'm going to put an indexing pin so the jig will stay put from now on. Okay, now similar to what I did on my lower cabinetry with my toe kick drawer, I'm going to go ahead and install these drawer slides in this small little 4-inch space, so it's not that difficult to install the drawers later. If I can get these done before I assemble it, that's one less thing that I got to worry about that's going to cause me problems if I don't do it now. Now, one thing I like to use, even though these are dadoed in and it tends to self-align, I still use these right angle blocks to hold it at a good, perfect 90-degree angle while I pre-drill and screw it in. Sometimes it just takes a little persuasion. Alright guys, well that pretty much wraps up this video. I've got the building process done, just some minor touches here and there on the bench. And then these are pretty much ready for paint, just some minor sanding to get some of the burrs off. And then that should be it. Just paint the outsides of the ones that'll be showing and maybe the face frames that are showing. And I've got the other 2 over here behind my bandsaw ready for paint as well. So guys, that wraps it up for the Mudroom locker system. Part 1, and I will see you next week for Part 2 when we make the drawers and possibly the drawer fronts and doors. Guess we'll see. Boom!